so much for joining us in this breakout session from Zero to Hero, how ServiceNow built a branded digital adoption CoE. Many of you are probably attending Realize this year because you're doing some great things with WalkMe, but you want to take it to the next level. You're focused on that magical word of scale. ServiceNow is an incredible example of scale, growing from 1 app to 40 in less than 3 years. So today I'm joined by Chris, captain of the ServiceNow digital adoption ship, and part of his crew, Jason, and they've created an incredibly successful central governance strategy and specifically use the power of branding to accelerate their program's growth year over year. So before we hear their story, I'm going to give some context. My name is Leah Hedgie, and I'm a program architect here at WalkMe. I work with enterprise level customers on strategic direction for their digital adoption programs and optimizing their processes for scale. I start to work with many customers at this point solution or this multiple siloed solution phase. You might have a singular use case for WalkMe, perhaps a single user group on Salesforce, maybe for the sales department at large on multiple platforms. And as you start to see value with WalkMe, you want to start to expand, maybe from 1 to 2 applications to 3 to 4 applications, maybe from one department to multiple departments. And the growth here is fairly linear. So how do you start to make it exponential? How do you get on a trajectory like Chris is, where you're going from 1 app to 40 apps in less than 3 years? You have to have a strong core governance strategy. Once digital adoption becomes relevant from the top down, from the center out, the opportunities start to compound and scale starts to happen. As you can imagine, there are innumerable benefits to having a core strategy. The exponential growth can quickly become sprawling without it. This is your thesis statement to your digital adoption essay. It's your nucleus to your digital adoption cell. And no matter what program structure you evolve into, this is necessary. Structurally, your program can take on quite a few different forms. So when we say core or central here, I want to make sure you know that the whole program, including the implementation arms, doesn't have to be centrally located, and it might not make the most sense for your business. But regardless of what structure makes the most sense, and those who actually build WalkMe are more federated or more central, having a core tone for your digital adoption approach is essential. Let's use a quick analogy to talk about the power of branding. How do you feel when you walk into an Apple store? It's immaculate, it's polished, it's a little bit futuristic. You feel like you know what you're going to get, right? How would you feel if it didn't look like this? Maybe you walk in and one has dimmed lighting, the walls are painted a different color. It's a little odd. You might be confused. You might distrust it a little bit. You might actually walk out because you're not really sure what's going on. Maybe you'll go to another location. We trust predictability. So even with the Apple franchises, they've mastered the branding of the stores, so we know what to expect. We willingly visit and we continually purchase. It's the same with your digital adoption brand. As you scale and maybe even franchise, the more cohesive your strategy, your process, and your internal group of digital adoption professionals, the more predictable your results. So first, think about your end users. If WalkMe starts to look and feel the same across a user journey, you build user trust. WalkMe helps me. WalkMe is reliable. And think about your potential stakeholders, the business owners from other functional departments where you want WalkMe to start to have a presence. If you're replicable and consistent, stakeholders see a partnership with your program as a low risk, trustworthy investment in achieving their desired outcomes. Scale your structure with that core strategy and your approach becomes more turnkey and your scaling accelerates. So now I'm really excited to transition it over to Chris and Jason, who are going to talk about how they've leveraged the power of branding to accelerate their program's growth.
Hey, thanks, Leah. I really appreciate that and introducing us. And hey, everyone, my name is Chris, and I wanted to thank you for listening in on this story that we're about to tell about our digital adoption journey. And to start out, I want you all to take a look at this person. Do you know who it is? Maybe just a young guy with glasses, but if I show you this, now what pops in your mind? How about this guy? Does it look familiar? Or how about now? a little bit more recognizable, right? When you're talking about brand, it's bigger than just a person or even a team. It's the symbol of something larger. It's not about the person under the mask. It's about the symbolism that they represent. But to kick off our story about brand, I first want to share a story about Eve. And this is Eve. Eve works at your typical company. She starts her day waking up, checking her Instagram, looking at her news notifications, checking her calendar, and all from bed, right? Because a lot of us are there nowadays. Then she gets ready and decides what to do for her day. She goes and grabs some coffee and takes charge of her workday. She opens up her browser and logs into the 6 different systems she needs to get her work done. Except every system experience is different. Her employee portal, her CRM tool, her analytics dashboard, her email, they all have their own interfaces. They all have their own ways of working and their own lingo. There's no consistency from Eve's side of the experience. Eve has to learn how to do all of these different tools and switch between them 100 different times a day seamlessly. Sound frustrating? This inconsistency, this chaos, this is the villain of Eve's story. And it's the villain of realistically all of our stories because we all deal with it. The sinister powers that be, they made all and every tool look and function differently just to toy with people. And look at that. Just as they're just announced that they're going to change Eve's CRM tool to something completely different, and they're going to do it next week. But you know, with every super villain that comes along, there's always a superhero to come to the rescue. And in this story, that superhero is you. Because with the powers of WalkMe, you can help solve Eve's problem and everyone's problem. And you can start doing this by creating your own brand. But let me rewind a little bit and tell you about my own story. I recognized this villainous problem and knew it needed a solution. So this small idea formed: have one consistent tool across every system where every person knows, hey, if I click this button, if I send out this signal, something is going to come to my rescue. And if you've ever heard me talk about it before, I tend to refer to digital adoption as kind of like adding superpowers to a given system. And that's because, you know, the superheroes that you know of, like Iron Man, they're just normal people. But when you add a special ability to them, that's when they become the superpowers and the superheroes. Well, much like at superpower, with DAP, we can add that extra layer on top of any given system, giving that system a lot of different superpowers that it never had before. And that idea of a superpower, it sparked the entire identity of our digital adoption program. We weren't just employees, we were superheroes solving our company's problems. But it didn't just stop there. It became the way that we pitched the idea of digital adoption to anyone at the company who was interested and wanting to know more. Hey, have a system that needs some extra oomph? We can add some superpowers to that system. We embodied that powered brand and made each of WalkMe's capability into its own superpower. Powers like super speed or walkthroughs that can get users productive at the speed of light. Or sonic echoes that can shout out to our users from miles away from their emails. Teleportation that can jump users exactly where they need to go. And reading our users' minds sometimes in the form of automation. Finally, helping see through the data with X-ray vision from the analytics that we can provide. The Superpower brand even became our internal website where anyone at the company can learn about who we are, see examples of those powers in action, and request our services to help save their own system. And to dive a little bit deeper into some key takeaways about how you yourselves can incorporate some of these ideas, I'm going to turn it over to my superhero teammate, Jason. Jason, take it away.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you for sharing the cool origin story. Every good superhero or squad should have a good origin story. And so what I'd like to do is continue on with Eve's story. She's still battling the supervillain chaos. She's getting nowhere. She's frustrated. But she immediately thinks of the Digital Adoption Squad for help. But why would she think for the Digital Adoption Squad? That's where branding comes into play. And so there's this quote about branding that I really love, and it goes something like this. If a brand is a person's gut feeling about a service, then branding would be the art of influencing a person's gut feeling of that service. And so if we build a brand that exudes optimism, consistency, supportive, Eve would instinctively be seeking for the Digital Adoption Squad for assistance, which leads me to the 3 takeaways or aspects that you can start today to supercharge your own digital adoption branding. You can think of these as 3 energy sources that you could draw power from to help you defeat the supervillain chaos. So let's start with the first energy source. I call it sound smart, but fun. What I mean by this is be intentional with your words. Think about your walkthroughs, how they sound. Think about your shoutouts. What are the tone of your shoutouts message? And how would your user or viewer interpret that message? So a simple example would be consider a call to action button on your shoutout. And what we usually or standardized try to go for a naming convention would be click here. But what if we tweaked it and turned it into something like, let's go? A slight change kind of made a big difference where the feeling and the tone totally changed the experience itself and became a lot more welcoming and inviting. So it looks like Chaos just took one small blow and he shrunk a little bit. Let's move on to the second energy source that you could draw from. And I call it regular, big, and bigger. With this energy source, what we're trying to do is to arrange your messaging in a better, more organized way, utilizing what I call typographic hierarchy. Typographic hierarchy might sound intimidating, but what it basically means is use different sizings and weights of your font to guide your users through the content and make a joyful experience. A good simple guideline would be start with a big, concise headline. Follow it up with a slightly smaller subheadline, only when needed. And finally, use a normal size text and weight for the main message, something like you see here on this slide. And also in the previous slide, you would see that I already incorporated that into the slide design. Now, Chaos just took another hit and he's looking super weak. So let's move on to the third energy source. The third energy source and the last one is what I call looking sharp and stylish. With this energy source, we're thinking about creating a unique color palette that is consistent and used throughout all of your WalkMe widgets, balloons, launchers, basically whatever WalkMe feature you could think of. And the reason behind this is a consistent color palette kind of forms a feeling of familiarity and then naturally builds trust. As you can see here, these 4 colors, the dark blue, the light green, the black, the white, these are the colors that are chosen for our brand. And throughout the presentation, you'll see that these colors have been consistently used and they've consistently been used in our WalkMe designs. And from there, it naturally builds trust and forms familiarity. These colors, although may not instantly resonate with your users, but once they go through an experience a few times, they instinctively correlate the set color palette to the digital adoption squad. So it looks like, boom, Chaos just got the final blow. He's super weak. He's retreating back. And great. Now that Eve's found an ally, she's confident to anything in the future that comes her way. She'll always know that she could call upon the trusty digital adoption squad to her aid. And that's a wrap to Eve's happy ending story. Handing it back over to you, Chris.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason, so much for showing those small key takeaways that can make a big difference in your own brand. But I know what you all must be thinking. Cool, you built a brand, big whoop. Well, why does this matter? And why the heck does this matter to me? Well, what I realized is while building a brand helps you keep chaos at bay, it also helps you build a community around it. It's that idea or that symbolism, something larger that revs people up. And it's a key accelerator to getting disjointed groups of people coming together in ways that they normally wouldn't. You see, no matter how big or small your company is, there's always people spread throughout that have ideas and want to do and help you do awesome things. They want to also become the superheroes in their own town. But a lot of the times, those people are spread throughout different companies or different departments. And they tend to be in their own silos and don't often collaborate. But by building your brand or your center of excellence, it helps break down all of those silos. I mean, hey, it took 5 Marvel movies to finally see Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, and Captain America all on one team. And what did we also do? Well, we made those people, the people in our company community, into something of their own superheroes by building out our center of excellence around this brand. And then we spotlighted them. We gave them a voice. We gave them an audience, which then accelerated more and more heroes to come join in. This built out our Avengers team, and it helped accelerate. And everyone quickly understood that if we all join forces, we can do great things together. All it took was putting on a cape and getting behind one idea. And this all comes back to that one idea, that one kind of bolt of lightning. Remember, it didn't start with all of this in mind, but putting your brand in place up front helps everyone get behind that one bigger idea and gets behind something larger than themselves. And remember Eve? She's the person that needs saving. When you build out your squad or your center of excellence, you can use it to defeat your own chaos. Thanks for joining in. I hope this conversation can help spark your own ideas around the power that a brand can bring you. Now, I just go build one. Thanks.
Chris, Jason, am I doing it right? Yeah? I can honestly relate to Eve. The day-to-day software journey can be chaotic and oftentimes villainous. She's lucky that she can trust her friendly neighborhood superhero squad to support and uplevel her to be successful. Thank you, Chris and Jason, for your incredible storytelling abilities. Don't forget those who have joined, there's a lot more great content still to come. Take a look at your Realize agenda now to decide on your next session, and I look forward to seeing you next time.